and gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome, welcome, welcome to the work session for the City of Oregon City's City Commission. Today is Wednesday, November 20th, 2024, and I'd like to convene this meeting and ask for the roll call.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Here.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Here.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
I am present. We have one item of general business on the agenda tonight, and it is the final review, we hope, of the Adaptive Reuse Building Rehabilitation Program 2.0. And I will turn it over to City Manager Conkle and Economic Development Manager, Mr. James Graham.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to start with the fact that on August 21st, the staff presented a revised revision of the program of the Adaptive Use Rehabilitation Program 2.0. On August 21st, you did a review of the program, and then we had a good discussion about that, and then staff brought it back on October 16th, and there was an additional review and discussion, and you reached consensus on the following latest revisions. You agreed that a second position against the forgivable loan would be permitted except in instances when SDC financing is part of the project and there exists sufficient collateral. You also agreed to remove the word structural from the program's definition. With substantiation, you agreed to allow consideration of project extension requests if delays are necessary due to circumstances beyond the control of the project developer. You agreed in determining whether a project developer has fulfilled their obligations under a disposition and development agreement. The city manager would then consult you with regard to how you proceed with the process, whether it's going to be a loan or turned into a grant. You concurred with, you sought more clarity with regard to who and what will be required to provide financial information and project versus developer. And then in consultation with the finance department, it was recommended that up to $150,000 could be allocated to the program for the remainder of the existing budget year through July 31st, 2025. Additional funding for the program in 2027 fiscal year would be determined through the budget process. So with that said, I'll be glad to entertain any questions you may have with regard to the latest revisions.
Gentlemen, are there any further questions? I see Mike has some notes on his paper, so why don't you start us off?
Okay. Under, I guess it's section 3, general program description, I've got a question about the...
And it's helpful if you give us the page that you're on.
Page 1.
Or red line or not.
I'm on page 1 of the red line.
Okay. Fabulous. Thank you.
A nonprofit agreeing to pay property tax. If a nonprofit owns a building, are property taxes even calculated? And then the other question would be, how long are they supposed to agree to not pay property taxes, or agree to pay property taxes? Because it's eating into the value of the grant if they're giving up their ability to not pay property taxes for forever or whatever.
You mean if they agree to pay property taxes?
Pardon?
You mean if they agree to pay property taxes?
Yes. So
Yes.
they're paying property taxes in order to get a grant.
Is that legal?
Seems a little counterproductive.
And is it legal? I tried to get an answer.
I have to confer. I have to defer to legal counsel on that one.
I don't know if she's an assessor, so that would be.
I think we'd have to look into the fact whether it's legal or not. What I think instead of a nonprofit essentially foregoing or agreeing to pay property taxes, they would pay essentially a fee in lieu to the city. That way, it wouldn't go through the assessor's office. Do you see what I mean?
Be like a payment
It'd be-
in lieu of taxes.
Yeah, okay, I see what you mean, but again, doesn't that defeat the purpose of the grant?
I need to look into it. I need to look into it a little bit.
We have this grant program for you, but you have to pay us.
I think, so, yeah, I mean, yeah, if we don't want to collect it, we don't have to, or set up a program to do that. I think part of the thought process was that you're using general fund money to which would be potentially awarded to a nonprofit who doesn't pay property taxes. So there's no revenue generation on the construction or reassessment of the building that comes back through general fund tax collection over the longevity of the city or that building being there. So how important is it that, you know, are we trying to create increment that comes back onto the tax roll, or is this, are we okay with, we'd give it to a nonprofit realizing there's going to be no increment created or taxes generated back to the city in any form until it's sold or they don't own the property anymore, right? And it turns over to a private entity.
So Mike, I'm glad you brought that up because one of the nonprofits that I belong to, we just got our statement from the assessor's office, and it shows what the assessed valuation is of the property, but under the line of where the taxes, there's nothing there. And it's zero because it is a 501c3 and they meet all the requirements of the Department of Justice and all that. But I think what I wrote on my notes was this seems counterproductive.
Yeah. So I think that's a policy decision that we need to have. What are the overriding goals of this program? Are we trying to get buildings rehabilitated or are we trying to create increment?
I think we're trying to do both if we can, but the primary effort should be getting these buildings rehabilitated. And I mean, I think that it's highly unlikely we're going to get 5 or 6 nonprofits applying for this. I mean, I don't see it.
Doesn't it seem pretty thin when you say fee in lieu of, and your taxes would have been $7,002, and your fee in lieu of is $7,002? Either you do or you don't.
Yeah, I'd say we don't.
Do the others want to weigh in on that point, or should I keep going?
Keep going.
Keep going? Okay. I'm sorry. And again, I'm still on the red line version. On page 2 of 6, eligible expenses, the first bullet point still says structural.
Oh,
So that word should be struck. And then just a question on, in section 6, ineligible expenses and conditions. I'm on page 3 now. 1, 2, 3, 4. The fifth bullet point. I'm confused by a couple of things on that. The timing, it's 12 months, not eligible to apply in the following fiscal year, but it says applicants. Should that be projects? I mean, if we have an applicant who is involved in multiple projects in different locations, we're saying that applicant can only apply once, or the project can only apply once?
the project.
Project?
Yeah, the project.
Okay. That makes more sense. And then the next bullet point, should that say that, past due local, state, federal taxes? Because, we all owe property taxes for a while between the time we get billed and we have to pay them.
So it says that applicants that owe local property taxes, federal taxes, are not eligible, if they're delinquent.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it doesn't say that.
Yeah,
So it
delinquent.
should say delinquent or past
Clarify.
due.
Yeah.
We already talked about the local property tax thing. I'm confused by if we would take second position, subordinate position. I don't understand what we're taking second position to or not.
You'd be taking a second position to if it starts off as a loan. So you're taking a second position on the loan until such time, it might, if it remains a grant, if it remains a loan, you're taking a second position on the fact that it's a loan. And that means that you're taking, you may be behind their bank, but you would not be behind the SDCs, because you would not be sharing a second position, but you may be behind their bank. And if you're behind the bank, then there has to be enough collateral to repay the loan. You still have to have a secured position relative to collateral.
Is your mic on?
Yes.
Okay, it's obviously not close enough to where you're speaking.
So you'd be second position to a bank loan, but you're ahead of SDCs.
SDCs are ahead of us. We're taking a second position behind the SDCs.
And behind a bank loan.
I'm sorry, the SDCs are first. I'm sorry, the SDCs are in the first position. We don't take a second behind the SDCs. We are taking a second, say, behind the bank.
Opposed, I'm opposed to that. I'm fine with being in the second position of the SDCs only. I don't want to be in the second position in any other category. But there's others here.
Anything else?
I was wondering if anybody else was going to weigh in on Commissioner O'Donnell's comment.
Well, let's weigh in. This is our opportunity to make a policy decision about whether we want to take SDC financing. We don't take seconds on SDC financing for anything at this point in time.
I'm not a loan guy, but
A clarification,
will
though.
a bank lend if they're not in first position?
Well, first of all, if they have an existing loan on the building, you're going to have to take a second position behind the bank if it's already an existing loan, unless they refinance it, and the bank is not going to take a second position anyway. So if it's already an existing loan, now if the building is free and clear, then you have some room to maneuver. You can take a second position behind the bank. So that is those are the limitations we have. Now, if you don't take, the key is if you don't take a second position, no matter what, then you do run the risk of really not really having too many applicants applying to this program.
Well, Michael, I don't have a problem with us taking a second position on the loan. That's pretty typical. It's what most jurisdictions or urban renewal agencies will do, and to me, that's not a deal breaker. But I agree that we should not be taking a second on SDCs. Those funds have to be paid somehow, somewhere, and
Couldn't this be permissive?
it needs to happen.
Then they can decide
Rocky, you have any opinion about that?
whether to do it.
Not really.
Where's
I
Mr.
guess-
Sutton when we need him? He's probably watching from home tonight unless there's a Steelers game on.
Maybe it's more a legal question on position to put you in terms of reclaiming of a failed venture. I mean, there could easily be other claims made. Builder's claims, material claims.
Yeah,
But
They're all secondary to anything, right?
Right, it's secondary to the building, and it's secondary to the building, so therefore there's a fixed asset there. It all depends on, every deal is different, it all depends on how you collateralize the deal. You can be very aggressive and require a second position on the loan. You can also require personal guarantees beyond the corporate entity. There are all kinds of ways you can do this, but every deal is different depending on the financial viability of the applicant.
Yeah, I mean, again, I agree with what you're saying, that each situation is different. There's guidelines, and then you look at the specifics of that particular application.
I don't feel qualified to venture a guess. I mean, the situations you put forth is this one situation, if the city is the primary financier and there's no other outstanding obligations against it. It's another if there's an existing loan against the property, and then this is the second loan to upgrade it. I'm not sure, I don't know how you could even get into a primary position in that situation. So I don't feel qualified to venture an opinion on it.
Sometimes an appraisal is, in a lot of these instances, an appraisal is done, evaluating a building. And so therefore, if there's a bank in front of you, then the bank would obviously be in a first position, if it's an existing loan, that is, and they just went ahead and did another appraisal. Or if it was appraisal that was done on a building that's free and clear, that could happen, and then you would know the value of the building based on the appraisal, and then the second position would be behind that value. So that's, the appraisal is instrumental in determining the value of your collateral.
I have a thought, a conditional thought. If the appraisal value is sufficient to cover the value of the existing loans and the value of the loan the city put in, then you would be in a safe position to be in a secondary position. If the appraisal value is insufficient to cover the secondary loan, which we would be in at that point, maybe we should.
We wouldn't probably approve the loan.
Well, I don't know. We haven't thought of it in those terms till right this moment. Is everybody clear on that point?
I get it.
Okay.
Well,
Any thoughts?
that's the, I mean, there's gonna be a.
I really don't have any thoughts to add at this moment, simply because I do not support this program as it is presented. Not because of what it says, but because of where it's going to be funded. And so I want to clarify that for James. I think that the product you've put in front of us is good, and I think that I would like us to move forward with this, but I'm not going to support it if it's going to come out of the general fund. Because at what point do we tell ourselves, midway through budget cycles, that it's enough, that we can't keep just going to the general fund and looking for things to fund things that we want to do, unfortunately. And thinking of alternative funding sources and looking at the qualifications for this program, if only there were a way to increase property values within a geographically constrained area. Oh yeah, we actually do have something for that, and it's called, yes. So I can't support this. I think it would be a great urban renewal project. It's exactly what urban renewal is meant to do, but I cannot support this coming out of the general fund. With that being said, I hope that we are able to find a way to do this, because I think it's a very noble program, and it's something that I think would do a lot of good for our downtown. So with that being said, I really can't speak on the rest of the nitpick this or that, because I just don't support it, period.
I appreciate.
Can I speak to that?
Absolutely.
Okay. I agree with most of what you just said, except we're not really mid-budget cycle. By the time this thing gets finalized, rolled out, we're going to be into next two-year budget cycle. So we could budget for it. But what I do agree with, to me, this is a perfect program for urban renewal. And if we're going to restrict it to the urban renewal boundaries, it makes perfect sense to pay for it out of urban renewal.
I have managed a program like this.
Yeah.
It is.
So to me, we either do it in the urban renewal district and we pay for it with urban renewal funds, or we do it citywide and pay it from the general fund, or we do both. You know, two separate programs. But I agree with you. It doesn't make sense to have it in the urban renewal district and pay for it out of general fund.
And I will say I support it being constrained to the urban renewal district, because it gets to the heart of the buildings that we're trying to target.
Yes.
And I agree with what you just said. What I would note, though, is that the idea for this came mid-budget cycle. And so
yeah,
the fact still remains, how many times can we have an idea mid-budget cycle to then say, we'll just do it the next budget cycle? Because that gets us into the same problem where we're trying to appropriate things beyond what we already have.
I'll keep it simple. I agree with Commissioner Mitchell. I mean, it's either an urban renewal constrained project, which should be funded out of urban renewal, or it's citywide, and at that point, the general fund is your funding source. So I'm good with it, with that.
Well, the idea that it would be funded out of general fund is basically secondary to me. I want to get the skeleton and the bones of this and the meat on it so that we can implement it when the timing is right. We need to work through it and get the wording right. But it is an urban renewal project. It's what urban renewal does. As I said, I managed a program that did this very thing. And the buildings that were rehabilitated, a couple were nonprofits, but others were, regular, not nonprofits. And that whole section of the district that this program really helped revitalize other things. It's like the domino effect. One guy paints his building, and the next guy goes, hopefully they go, oh, my building doesn't look so great, I'm going to paint my building. And gee, you got some money to do it? So I'm hoping we can get it in place and decide about how it gets funded later. I mean, I'm cautiously...
That's not going to work for me.
Well, and the other challenge is if it's going to be urban renewal, this needs to be before the Urban Renewal Commission, not us.
Right. We're going to get it together, and we can take it to urban renewal and ask them to take a look at it.
Right.
I was hoping we were going to do it anyway, because we've got some flyovers going on tonight here.
Yeah, it sounds to me like there's a consensus of at least 3 that thinks this, if it's going to be constrained to the urban renewal district, it's an urban renewal funded project.
Well, let's get it cleaned up and refer this to our urban renewal commission.
Okay.
Do I have consensus on that? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's bring this back to urban renewal.
Yeah, we want it cleaned up to the point to where
I guess,
we've answered some of these questions.
certainly. Getting back to the loan component on, for section 13, on the red line, it's page 6. It kind of lays out the loan committee and how we would be reviewing the loan. So I'm wondering if there's a way, essentially we're bringing the expertise through that loan committee to kind of look at the loan terms, and these minimum criteria for maximum debt to income, minimum debt service coverage, right? And out of that, I could imagine is going to come a recommendation to loan or not.
And
right?
that's where
Which probably then gets into how risky is this, which probably helps answer, the concern about what position we're in. I think it gets to kind of your point of, you've got an appraisal and the value exceeds the debt of the total encumbrances on the property.
It's recoverable.
Pretty good spot to be.
Yeah.
Right? But if your appraisal's half and you owe, 100 or 150% of the value, you probably got big red flags there, right? I mean, I don't know that we got to get I think we understand the concerns
can't get
of
the weeds on this.
the risk associated with that, right? And sometimes, because I was just saying, I agree with James in that you're not sure how every one of these is going to come in different, right? Like maybe somebody has an existing loan mortgage on the property, and instead of taking a second, they're taking a construction loan, right? Which is still going to be recorded against the property. There's just how they finance their project, depending on how big it is going to come in a lot of different forms. But I think if we can somehow, empower the loan review committee to, be able to describe what the risk is and whether this is a good loan to move forward or not. Right?
Isn't that
I
what the
think
loan
we'll probably
committee's for?
get to some of the questions we're having about the structure of where we're at, right? Because I could see you have a loan on the building, you take out a construction loan, maybe you're going to bankrupt your SDCs and you qualify for this, right? It's going to get messy in there. And so, but if there's enough value in the project, then it makes sense, right? I think that lowers our risk. If you have your first, your construction, your SDC and your loan, and you still have value that exceeds that debt, it's a good spot to be, right? So I think we're going to have to work through each one of these kind of individually.
why don't we state that in plain language in the loan criteria?
That's what I'm thinking is, would that get, without being like every one of them, we have to be exposition, right? I just worry
We can't.
there's going to be such a different combination of how these financing packages are, some are going to have a bunch of cash brought to the bank, right, in order to get the loan. I mean, I just don't think every one of these isn't going to be the same is what I worry about. So if we can have more of a policy statement that then is part of the review criteria and the recommendation that comes out when we have our financial group kind of look at this, is this a good idea or not? Is this a good loan or not?
And perhaps,
I think that's what Mr. Graham tried to articulate, that each of the applicants, whoever they may be in the future, they're not going to be the same. And so each application will be looked at on its own merits based on the criteria that we have. If we need to make a statement that outlines that, make it even more definitive, we can't lock it in because we don't know what the situation is. It's got to be broad enough to allow the loan committee to say, here's what the risk is, here's what we think we should do. Yes, this is okay. No, this is not okay. That's what I'm expecting the loan committee to do.
and
They're gonna
perhaps
make a recommendation
by
about what happens.
making the word will permissive, if you make the word will permissive to may, the loan review committee may accept a subordinate position, except in the instance when SDC financing takes a first collateral position.
I think that's great.
Then you can decide.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That's a better piece. That's one word that's better. May is discretionary. You can kind of go, well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
See, in my mind, the collateral for the loan at any given point is the value of the property at that point, or the property with the addition of the improvements which we have financed. It's a safe loan if you are in a position to recover all that at any progression in the construction process. And that's a simple statement that I think can be in there.
I think that's what Tony's saying, so let's put that in there.
Could we accept, let's say somebody made a personal guarantee, right, and they had other assets, right?
They bring cash to the table.
Right, they have cash, or, they have 4 other properties that they own, right, that have value in them, right, that they could make a personal guarantee against those, right? That's what I'm just saying, is like, we've seen different models come in depending on the financial situation of the applicant coming, right?
Right.
So, but I agree, that's definitely one way to meet it. It's very straightforward and simplest.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
let's
just,
put that in.
if someone comes in with another way that makes sense, do we want to consider that, or is this the only way, right? I just worry about being too constrained in terms of just the flexibility of how some of these projects might get financed.
And you think
I
about
worry
it,
I worry about the complexity of the financing process when you start saying, I will put up these additional properties as collateral. Then you have to investigate what are the outstanding against those.
That's part of the deal.
It gets too complex, I think.
It's really not.
It's
It's not going to be, we're not going to be the ones reviewing it. We're going to get a recommendation.
the loan review committee.
There's going to be a report and findings, so to speak, not land use finding, but findings on why this makes sense or why it doesn't make sense.
I've made a many a loan in my career, and I haven't seen one loan that looks alike.
Neither have I.
And you establish standards by which you make your criteria judgment, and that's what we have, standards. An applicant could offer all other collateral. It's up to you to decide. It's up to the loan review committee to decide to take it, and for the loan review committee to decide to make the deal. That's why it's a separate entity, because you don't want to put yourselves in the position of making loans as a commission. That's why you have a loan review committee to review the application, to make the loan and make a decision. We have to empower the loan review committee of professionals to make the loan.
What expertise is the loan committee going to rely upon?
Say again? Pardon me, I didn't hear you. I did not hear you.
What expertise is the loan committee going to rely upon?
They're back running, making loans. You could, in terms of the loan review committee, there could be there would be accountants and bankers and other kinds of financial experts on the loan review committee that are accustomed to making loans every day.
Well, in my mind, we still set the standard because we are the source of financing.
And the standards that you have before you are standard for the industry of making loans. These are the standards.
I'm not going to go back in the history books and cite failed urban renewal loans where the recovery value of the property was way less than sufficient to recover our monies.
We did not have the criteria and standards for those previous ones like we do for this.
I don't know that we do for this, but okay, I'm listening.
J.P. Morgan even makes bad loans.
I'm having a hard time here.
So, a suggestion, back on page 6, on the red line version, under financial support, item 13.
Yep.
And then there's 1 is the loan review criteria.
Yep.
And 2 is the loan committee review. Maybe we need to add in there, loan committee is charged with evaluating the risk. I mean, specifically spell out that evaluating the risk to the city or to the Urban Renewal Commission is a essential part. I don't know the exact wording, but spell out clearly in their charge that they are to evaluate the risk involved as a part of their decision.
And also the statement that you talked about earlier as part of this, so that there's a clear policy direction.
Of, yeah, trying to minimize the risk to the
Right.
city or the district,
Obviously.
wherever this ends up being.
Next, Michael. That's it? Okay. All right, so it looks like, yes, yeah, sorry.
So I want to be clear that if we are able to get this up and running through urban renewal before the end of the next fiscal year, I'm supportive of doing it as soon as possible. And to the point that Commissioner Mitchell made about we may not even get to the point where we're doling out the funds until the beginning of the next fiscal year. What stood out to me, though, understanding that, is the fact that they're still proposing up to $150,000 from this budget ending this year. So they are proposing funds from this general fund. And so I think that there is an expectation maybe that there's a possibility
That was
of
not, that was mine.
I think after our last meeting, I was asked to
That's what
work
it says
with the
right
finance
here.
director to see, I think there was discussion about a program maybe up to $300,000, right? I think
It says, in consultation with the finance director, it is recommended that up to $150,000 could be allocated to the program for the remainder of the existing budget year.
right. So
So that's what I'm talking about.
I'm comfortable saying, like, if we wanted to move this, right, we could allocate $150,000 in the next 6 months, 8 months, whatever it is, right, to the end of June. That should have been June 30th, not July 31st. My error there. But, I'm comfortable in talking with finance that would be a number we'd be fine with moving forward on this buy-in. If that's something that the commission wanted
I'm
to do.
confused. I thought we were shifting it to urban renewal funds.
Well, I was just responding to what I
Yeah.
wrote in the report.
We said that we thought we should be doing that. We wanted to take it back to the Urban Renewal Commission, have them take a look at it. So we're not allocating anything at this point in time.
Right. The reason why I pointed that out was because of it was said that we wouldn't even be doing it until the next fiscal
Okay.
year, when it is said that they're looking at up to $150,000 from this fiscal year, and the reason why I point that out is because I want to clarify that I'm not opposed to doing something within this fiscal year. It's just that I'm not opposed to doing it within this fiscal year if it comes out of urban renewal rather than the general fund.
Well, I circled the word could. Didn't say
Wait a minute,
we
did you
will.
just, what?
Or, I mean,
You're other way around.
Other way around. Other way around.
Yeah, I
other way
got
around.
it. We got it. It was the other way around. Yeah. Okay.
See, I'm on board with Commissioner Mitchell and I think Commissioner Morrow. If it's the criteria is within urban renewal and it's urban renewal funded. If you want to run a dual program and say developments outside of urban renewal will be funded by general fund. That's a whole other discussion if you want to do a dual program. But as it stands, if it's within urban renewal district, it's urban renewal dollars.
That's why I recommended we're gonna clean this up, get it ready to roll, and we're gonna refer it to the Urban Renewal Commission for their review.
I guess I would just point out that we have a limitation on the ability to spend urban renewal funds. Any contractual obligation of over 1 year needs to go to a vote of the people. So, this is, I think some of the discussion I've had is, I think the Urban Renewal Commission needs to decide what we're going to do about the inability to use urban renewal as it's intended.
We tell them it's a 6-month program, you get your thing done, and then we're...
Well, that's not gonna...
I know. I'm being slightly facetious,
Yeah.
but
I'm not.
if we have a limitation, I think that I'm interested in having an exploration about what could we do within that very narrow range of 365 days.
Like honestly, when you're talking about possibly the greatest single lump sum of $150,000 in the world of construction, I think you can easily expend that within 12 calendar months.
Well, tell me,
Having built houses.
it's just like, it goes poof, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Anything else that we need to discuss under this particular work session? This is the only thing we had scheduled.
Correct. No, I have nothing else.
So this is going before the Urban Renewal Commission? Okay.
Yeah. Once we'll clean it up.
Yes.
Yeah, a couple of words here.
So I guess a question that I have before we adjourn this is we got some correspondence regarding the DMO, and we have such a short window to... Was the concept of getting that information so that we could get back to you via, just get back to you about if we had any comments or concerns?
The emails that I forwarded to the
Yes.
commission? Yes, so we're bringing that back to the commission
On the
on
2nd?
December 10th.
On 10, okay.
At the work session. I'll
Okay.
include all the emails that I
Okay,
forwarded
perfect.
as part of the public record, so we can have a discussion about.
Okay. I thought our time frame was shorter, and I was getting a little anxious.
Well, I think, we had a goal of a time frame.
Right.
I think depending on how that work session goes is probably gonna dictate a little bit of the timing.
Okay.
I think we're in a good spot, but I won't speak for Commissioner O'Donnell, who's part of that group. But I do see, I don't think we're gonna get to the point of being able to have it adopted and seating a board of directors by the end of the year. I mean, we're kind of out of time. I
Right.
mean,
Well,
if we're
my concern is that I want to make sure that the reason I'd recommended Commissioner O'Donnell be on that group is that I wanted his insight and his expertise in terms of being able to look at a broad picture. And it's real important to me that all of his comments and concerns are addressed and before we conclude 2024.
Well, maybe I should make a few comments.
So we can do it on the 10th. So I just wanted to make sure we were still on track to have a discussion about that and move that forward.
Let me tell you where we are, because we've been working diligently. We've had 4 meetings. One was at 4:30 last night. One was at 8:15 this morning.
Holy moly.
And you will be supplied with a multitude of documents, I think as many as 4, and that will be incomplete because there'll be another document, which is a contractual relationship between the DMO and the city. But if your goal is to form the DMO before the end of the year, that's a single document. I think you could break that out and say, how does that look to us? As far as the other documents, is the role of the DMO, the mission statement, the qualifications of the director.
That can come later, you feel?
I think we can, but the overall, I think we can do it that way. And you know what? The whole goal is to give everyone the opportunity in this commission to review a wealth of documents that has many hours in it. And nobody's saying it's perfect. We're not going to let perfect stand in the way of good, but give it your input. And I'd like to get through it in a single meeting, so at least Rosalie can proceed with the formation of the DMO itself. Hopefully.
I think that that's a very reasonable path to take, and I was wondering if we could, I thought, well, maybe we don't have to do all of that. Maybe we do part of it. create the entity, which is the critical step, I think.
Mayor,
It's the devil's in the details, it's about the other stuff, so, great, okay,
Yeah.
good.
Mayor,
What do you feel, James? I mean, you've been in these meetings.
yeah, I've been in the meetings. They've been good meetings, productive, I think you would agree.
Yeah.
The concern was whether or not you could actually put out applications for individuals to then apply, and then the board would have to, you would have to approve those applications, and there doesn't seem to be enough time for that process.
Right.
So I talked with the consultants, they agreed to extend the contract beyond December 30th without extra cost,
Okay.
so that you could have the time to do it.
But I think on December 10th will be the first opportunity for really the 5 commissioners to talk about the work
Yeah.
that the task force has done. And so I think it just depends on how that conversation goes, right? I mean, are we okay with 501c6? Are the board members, are you going to pay to be a board member, or is volunteering good enough, right? I think there's some questions about how much autonomy does the board have, right? And what is the commission comfortable with? And what are tools that we have as the city commission, whether through contract or how much money is funded, right, to influence kind of the direction, right? I mean, so I think there's just some fundamental things. I think that if we get through,
Right.
I think we're probably in a good spot.
I think so.
I agree. Okay, so I think if we all come to agreement that we are going to try to get everything that we need to do it, that's, our goal is to have it, not totally gift wrap, but close, get the entity created, and then we can deal with the other stuff in subsequent meetings. I think that's, if we are in agreement with that, I think we can do, I know we can do that. I'm confident we can do that.
I think we can do that. I think the other details, I'll tell you what you're looking for in a director is a unicorn. You're looking for somebody that's both marketing and management that can fulfill those dual roles. Wait till you see the requirements.
Yeah, okay, I'm looking,
Huge.
yeah, I've started in on the documents, so, okay. Well, being no further business, excuse me, sorry.
I just want to thank Mr. Graham for his work on that adaptive reuse program. I think that could be a great program for us, so thank you.
I agree. It's very close to one that I've managed, so I like it. All right, we're going to adjourn the work session, and we'll be back in session for the regular general meeting at 7 o'clock.